Your self-belief molds your confidence. And when you don't have confidence in altering your nutrition or your training, you lose self-belief, but you trust that old diet, you trust that old way too much. So education drives compliance. What worked once doesn't mean that it's going to work again.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Siewert, along with my co-host, Keegan Walls. And today we are joyed to be sitting down with my nutrition coach and friend, Jack Sullivan. Jack is the owner of Modern Strength. He does personalized nutrition, fitness, strength coaching, mainly towards males, right? Men, high-performing men, kind of in that niche. So we're really excited to have him here today to share a little bit about his story, but also give us some really practical tips on how we can take care of our bodies as well. So thanks for being here, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
And excuse my voice if it's a little hoarse. Getting over a cold, but is what it is. We're rolling.
Yeah, we just want to do like a little shout out though. Austin just started, so when he introed as like high performing men, he's just getting started. So don't judge our guest based on right now.
Yes. Yes. And then show the before pictures.
It's a work in progress.
So cool, Jack. Tell us what Modern Strength is, what you do now.
So Modern Strength started with me being fed up with working for others.
Okay.
I think that's how a lot of
Similar story.
Start.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of like, I know I can do this better. I can serve people at a higher level. And it's simple. Like it's the tagline is like simplifying nutrition and training.
Okay.
And how can I make things more applicable? Because especially in the wellness space, it's wildly confusing. There is so much information out there that, you can Google it and everyone's like, oh, this is the answer. This is the answer. But you're an individual. It takes something a little bit different. Your life is different than Austin's as a super high performer, But of all honesty, it's like taking anyone and saying, okay, you are a high performer in your own way. And then how do we simplify it? So I don't want to overcomplicate it. The body is complicated. When I'm coaching someone, it's taking the basics for me and making them even more simple for you, because our bodies are complex and everyone's different.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, the big thing for me is like I've done keto, I've done all the different diets, I've done low cal, I've hit it hard in the gym and then fall off for a period of time. It's like I'm just going up and down and up and down. And sometimes you just need accountability. Like you know what you need to do, and you are more skilled in telling me exactly which macros, like what my macros should be, and working me through that and building a system around it. But anybody can lose weight by eating less calories, right? If you want to lose weight, but most people don't track, and most people do it for a period of time and try to find a shortcut to living a healthy lifestyle. But that shortcut might exist for a period of time, but it's not sustainable. And that's one thing I've liked about working with you is like, and I told you from the beginning, I don't need to be shredded. Like I don't need to bench press 400 pounds anymore. I don't need to be shredded. I just want to feel comfortable taking my shirt off on the boat in the summer. Right. That's it. That's what I'm looking for, and I want to build a lifestyle that's sustainable around that. So, yeah.
And yeah, when speaking to that is just like one of the biggest pieces when I'm working with people is that education drives compliance. If you have a better understanding, your application is going to be better, hands down. So if, again, I can simplify something for you or say, hey, like no food is off limits. You don't need to lift the world. I think a lot of guys have that idea, like they want to be this big buff guy, and like, who are you looking at?
Yeah.
Are they natural? We don't know. In today's age, it's like there's a lot of people that are unnatural, which is not a bad thing, right? I think it still takes a lot of work. So I have a lot of respect for people that are, on performance enhancing drugs or TRT. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but it's a tool.
Yeah.
And you need to be smart with it. But for a lot of people, I think it comes down to what are my goals and what does it take to get there? And how can I find a realistic way to get there and maintain it? Because winning the game is not just losing the weight. It's, again, if you're unhealthy, but losing the weight and keeping it off. Mm-hmm. Finding a healthy way to eat, train, and then continuing to do it. That's winning. where the average American is overeating, under-exercising, and that's good enough. Or they diet and they won, and then they fall off. Like, okay, it worked, but why aren't you still doing it? So did it really work? So trying to simplify that confusing cycle into something that's applicable. And one of the hard things is for a lot of people, they need to live through it, which sometimes takes blind trust. So that's where it's like, appreciate your trust in me. Obviously, we've got, clients, friends in common, and maybe some more trust was built in there because you saw what they have accomplished or what they've said.
Yep.
And that means the world to me because my business is mostly referral based. I'm sure we'll get into more business talk later, but that's what goes a long way.
Yeah. Yep. Trust the process. So where did this passion for health and wellness come from, Jack?
So I played soccer ever since I was like 6, and then played on a traveling club team until I was 18. Played in college in Milwaukee, and then it kind of fell off. But where it really started was when I was about 9 years old. My dad brought me into the gym, not doing anything crazy, but teaching me how things work. So I would go with him a couple times a week, on top of 2 hours of soccer 4 times a week. And then as I got into middle school and high school, I started realizing like I wasn't getting injured. I was one of the stronger guys. As I got into high school and playing on a club team as well, so all year round soccer and lifting, I was a captain, kind of a loudmouth, so directing. And then I was also a bit of a brute, so, like a purpose-built tool. But what I saw was that my strength allowed me to stay injury-free and be a solid teammate, a solid player. And then I looked different than everyone else. And that's a dangerous thing. I think everyone has a level of, body dysmorphia where you think you look a certain way when you really don't, whether that's bigger or smaller. And for me, it was always, I felt like I was smaller. So that's been, a challenge of my own, and it still is, where, like I started sharing just recently, I'm looking to gain weight.
Yeah.
It's a scary place for me because I want to hold a certain aesthetic because I get compliments, and that's nice.
And you're the fitness guy, right?
Right.
If you're overweight, nobody's going to hire you.
Right, which is fair.
Yeah.
And, so that's like my own thing. So it's like sharing that's a big step for me because I understand the inner workings, but I know what I need to do if I want to get stronger, if I want to build more muscle. I need to be an example for my people.
Yep.
So started with my dad showing me the basics. I saw what it could do for me in application in sport. And then come out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to a community college, ran into a friend from high school, and they're like, holy crap, like, you look different. What are you doing? Like, going to school, eating, working out. Okay, mind you, I was an additional probably almost 30 pounds heavier than I was in high school. Muscle, though. And they're like, you can go to school for that. Did you know that? And that's how I ended up in lacrosse. Not more than a week later, applied. 14 days later, got the acceptance letter.
Really?
I think...
At UWL?
Yeah, UWL. And then a couple months later, I was moving into a house having never visited lacrosse. I was just like, oh, they have an exercise science program. Oh, it's, internationally renowned for this program. Okay.
And where were you at the time?
Milwaukee.
Okay.
So it just it was one of those things where like, screw it. We're going for it. And, they're like, oh, do you want to go tour it? No, just do it. And oddly enough, I ended up getting connected to a friend from elementary school. And I moved in with him on a sublease. And then, from there, got into a local group fitness gym, learned a lot of what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do, who I wanted to be, who I didn't want to be. So, it all evolved.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more, but I'm sure we'll dig.
So you've always kind of been in that space, always been a fit guy. Because you hear a lot of people too, like they're the complete opposite, and then that's what inspires them to become a different person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was never, I was never overweight. I was fortunate enough to have parents that, my mom was a huge gardener. We were eating out of the garden, like literally sitting in the garden eating vegetables growing up.
That's great.
So we always had amazing food around. My mom is an amazing cook. Growing up, she managed a catering business. So again, amazing cook. Like anytime we'd go out, it was the whole like, it's better at home. It ruins the fun. But looking back on that, I'm so grateful because I learned the value of all of that. And I understand why why my view of food was different, why my body was different, why my performance was different, why my mindset was different. It's because we had good food.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how much that can serve you. And then looking at working with people that are, my age, older, and that realization of we eat every day, but we don't know shit about food. That's frightening. Yeah. When I'm working with a lawyer who considers chocolate chips dinner, I'm not even kidding. And that's where it gets scary because I'm like, whoa, like they're serious. And I would never judge someone. It's just one of those things looking back, you're like, okay. And how do I work with this? And ended up being a fantastic client and we made amazing changes, but that's a thing. High level people doesn't mean that you know about food, but we also don't teach it. So I was fortunate enough again to grow up in that space. Looking back on it, I'm very grateful for the family that I had, the friends that I had, the community, and then, what it created today. So it leads me to wanting to help people see that as well. And when they do, having that food freedom leads to confidence, leads to, body changes, leads to more success in their own businesses. And, all kind of leans me towards, and it is a newer niche for me in the last year is working with high performing, men.
Yeah.
And then taking everything, my whole entire life, and how do I compact that into, Austin?
Yeah.
How do I compact that into Spencer? And make it easier and simple for you to understand because there is so much noise out there.
Yeah. So you started out working for a local gym, right? Doing fitness training and stuff there.
Yep.
What was that transition like going from being an employee out of college to now going to work for yourself and maybe not knowing where the next dollar is going to come from and having to go out and find it?
So I was at a group fitness gym in the area. Ended up parting ways for multiple reasons, and a lot of that was because it wasn't how I wanted to coach. And I was seeing the quick fixes and the lies adding up. And I was like, I'm in school for nutrition and exercise science, and this isn't what we're learning. Like, that's not okay. And it took me a couple years to realize that. And, that transition didn't happen until, really, because my business is only 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
But the transition didn't happen until 2020. I took an interview in Boca Raton, Florida, with a good friend of mine, Sebastian, at Costa Performance. So if you're in Florida, and you're high level tennis, like that's the place to go. I'm not kidding. They're an internationally renowned place. At the time, they were a younger business, and I had a 4-day interview. I got to work with the number 1 tennis player of Venezuela for 4 days. Got the job offer. Unfortunately, the money wasn't there to move me from the Midwest all the way down to the tip of Florida. And there's always more opportunity. Love those guys. But after I left that interview, I realized, I was like, okay, these guys just kind of have a space and they're making it work. And that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, I could do this. I have the knowledge. And I got back from that interview. At the time, I was actually working at a paving company. And I was just kind of that screw it, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally put my back against the wall. And I was just like, I know I can help people. And so 2020 was when I started my business. Perfect time, right? Yeah, it's a great year. November 2020 is when I kicked it off. And the one of the opportunities from working in group fitness in the area was that I'm thankful for the fact that I have the skill set that I have, the people skills, but I was the head trainer. I was at multiple locations. I was seeing over 300 people a week. I was having those interactions, coaching, training, nutrition, just conversation. So a lot of connections. So when I started my business, I initially was targeting the people that were doing HIIT training and been doing it for years, but they still couldn't get a push-up. In my head, I was like, for the longest time, I always thought it was weird. You've been here for 3-4 years and you can't do a push-up. What's wrong?
That's crazy.
And you're being lied to saying you're following programming. They weren't following programming. It was the do more, go faster, go heavier, which if you know true programming, it's not right. That's not going to help you. So I had this plethora of people and just started reaching out saying, hey, I know you weren't happy with this or you're looking for more progress. So that's how I started. It was more of like the Gen Pop. As you're growing a business, you kind of, a service business, right? You're going to take whoever you can get at first. So men, women, it ended up being like more middle-aged women were approaching me, which, it is what it is. Like in a way, it's like, gotta leverage it. But the business started growing very quickly and I didn't have the systems in place. Had to go out of my way to get more education, go to seminars, travel. Very fortunate to meet an amazing group of friends and fellow nutrition coaches and trainers. It's like when you're in this space, it can be kind of lonely because there's a lot of people that don't want to better themselves. There's a lot of people that do but don't know where to go. And there's also competition. How am I going to be different? How do I set myself apart? And that's what I bet on myself to be different. And that was the understanding of the nutrition quick fixes, the exercise quick fixes. That's not how I got to where I am. So why would I coach that? I'm at these group fitness gyms and people are like, oh, you work out here. That's why you look like that. And it's like, no, I've been lifting since I was seriously lifting since I was 15. I'm not the biggest guy, but I'm pretty strong. Yeah. But that's the thing is like the average person will walk in and be like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to do it, unfortunately. I've been following programming. Yeah. I've been eating a certain way. I've not been avoiding certain foods. I have balance and understanding. So long story short, I intentionally put my back against the wall. Thankfully, I had some money saved up from working in construction. And that was enough to, I was waiting for my girlfriend Ellen to get done with grad school. She ended up getting a job in the area. So then I moved back up. So, back up from Milwaukee and started with a couple clients, word spread. And I just feel very fortunate for the referrals because I haven't done, besides Instagram and Facebook, like if that's marketing, I haven't paid for a thing. It's all been word of mouth. So referrals, trust, reaching out, super thankful for my community that I've built. But, looking back, I never would have thought I would get to this point. And then to the point now where, you start having different growing pains and having to navigate that. And, so nothing more rewarding than looking back on the last almost 4 years and saying, I've been living entirely on me. I haven't had to rely on anyone else. Am I making as much money as I want? No.
Yeah.
Has it been better every year? Yeah.
Yep. So
if I can, bet on that over time, I'm a happy guy because that's just going to keep going.
That's pretty sweet. How much, so speaking of that, like doing something different, right? There's all the fad diets, all that stuff. How much, how have you seen it working with people is reteaching them something, or how difficult is it like unteaching these unrealistic expectations? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because people, when they have their opinions, they're so like lashed on, like, this is it. Like, if you're a keto guy, keto's it. Everything else is death. Right? It's true. Like,
Carbs make you fat.
Yeah. So like, how hard or difficult is it kind of unteaching these things that like, that's not going to work, but they maybe hold on to it and believe it in their core? What's your experience with that?
Almost everyone has that. Not often do I get an Austin where he's like, yeah, man, my background's mostly keto, but like, help me and I'm willing to do anything. Yeah. And again, that's a trait of someone who's a high performer. They understand that they might not. they might.
That's enough coddling.
Do you want to switch places? It takes time. So a lot of times, like I kind of mentioned it before, is people will do something that they've gotten results with. Is it sustainable though? Why aren't you there now? And a lot of times, again, we need to be logical. We cannot think with emotion. Oh, I used to look like this. That vacation, I looked like that. It's like, cool, Kathy, but Don, whatever your name is, it's like, but where are you now? I don't care what you fit in when you were in high school.
Yeah.
You're an adult now. Life is different. You don't get to eat whatever you want and you exercise 6 times a week. It's different. You have kids. You have, a job. So we have to realize is that what worked once doesn't mean that it's going to work again. And people, like yourself, I said it before, it's like your self-belief molds your confidence. And when you don't have confidence in altering your nutrition or your training, you lose self-belief, but you trust that old diet, you trust that old way too much. So education drives compliance. I'm not going to admit that I know everything, but the reason something didn't stick before, the reason why you don't have your results now is probably because something was out of line. Your expectations, your goals. Completely deleting carbohydrates, it works for some people. Great. If you want to be if you want to be a high performer in the gym, just want to clarify. Carbohydrates are essential to your performance, to your progression, to your body composition. You can argue me on that. I don't care. But a lot of times, like I said, it's like I have to help someone live through it, and it takes a little bit of blind trust. But educating why carbs aren't bad, educating why balance is good, because there's going to be another birthday. There's going to be another barbecue. And it hurts. We all know what it's like to go someplace and be like, I can't have. No, you're choosing not to, right? That self-talk matters. You have the choice. You don't have to do anything. You're choosing to do this. But when you give power to I can't, you're giving the power to the cupcake that you can, flick on the floor and only the dog would eat. So there's a lot more than just what diet is it? All diets work.
Yeah.
Right? Put you in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. Great. So it's not just the food. A lot of times it's the mentality. It's let's understand food a little bit better, because that's usually the block. People go to diets because they don't understand how protein, carbs, and fats contribute. How do we get to calories? What are those? That's usually the missing piece, because there's lack of education. Just like there tends to be lack of education with finances, right? You think back, high school probably wasn't much offered. And now I think things are changing, but it's that understanding of if you want to be proficient at something, you need to learn the ins and outs of it. But like I mentioned before, is the ins and outs of it. Unfortunately, you can go online and find everything. And that's the problem, because you don't know what's truth and what's not. There's, the keto zealots, there's the paleo freaks that, this is the only way. But it's cool. Someone got success with it and they found sustainability. That doesn't mean it's right for you. So my approach is, to be different. It's not intentionally to be different. It's literally the most sustainable way is just balance. Unless you have an intolerance or you're allergic to some kind of food, there's no need to avoid it. It's how do we fit it in with your goals? So, we're working, more so with macronutrients, protein, carbs, fats. Those make up the calories. Okay, we better understand how calories work now, because we know what they're built on. What are your goals? We build it off of that. So getting into the nitty-gritty.
One thing that has been, going back to your question, Keegan, of that you're really good at, is using what somebody has already been doing. I came from a keto background. I was open to other ideas, but I'm not just going to go smash a pizza every day. You know what I mean? To get a bunch of carbs, I naturally eat a lot of meat.
Yeah.
So when you were looking at myself specifically, it wasn't a drastic change right away to put in a ton of carbs. It's working around what I've already been doing and making small changes over time. And I bet it's the same for somebody who was eating a bunch of carbs before and not enough protein. It's probably in the opposite direction. So
that's the thing too, is like a lot of people don't look to meet themselves where they're at.
Yeah.
So, Austin wants to be here. Okay, but Austin's right here.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand enough to actually get to this level. So I'm going to meet him where he is. Okay, you tend to eat more meat. You're a hunter. You have a lot of high quality meat at home. Let's use that.
Yeah.
Minus whatever the meat was. You said it was a no-go. And you had to get rid of it.
Sheep was terrible.
I'm just going to.
Yeah.
No, but, meet you where you're at. So, okay, so protein's higher, which is, we've talked about many times, like, fantastic.
Yeah.
Higher protein diets have been shown in numerous studies to be beneficial and not as detrimental as a lot of people think. But protein was higher. A lot of times fat comes with protein. It's not a bad thing. And again, high quality meat goes a long way. So your fat was higher than, we'll say what the average person is or the average client I would work with. That's just you. Bowel movements were good. Energy was good. All your biofeedback was fantastic. You're just like, body composition isn't where I want it to be. I want to be better. I want to understand things more, which I have a great appreciation for, because then you understand we're building an actual foundation. It's not just, hey, I want to look like this, make it happen. I'm going to make sure you understand that process. So yeah, higher fat. Okay, so fat and carbs are your energy source. Individually, they play roles in your hormonal health, your energy, your performance, things like that. So yeah, your carbs were in the basement and we brought them in, and you could very easily see is like, oh, weight didn't change. And I didn't, not that you ever feared them, it just wasn't something you did. Yeah. You start bringing them in, we're at the point now where, we're getting kind of the fun point of, we want to make sure you're getting enough to set you up for your next goal.
Yeah. I sent you a picture. I ate a pizza the other day, and I got to take pictures of when I go out, send it to Jack, and I'm like, ooh, what's he going to think about this? And you're like, great job, or something along those lines. I'm like, dude, great. Like, we're in a phase right now where we're trying to get more calories, and cool.
Right. Well, and that kind of gets into, it's like there's no bad foods. People tend, when they don't understand something, they tend to demonize it. Or if you were like a hardcore keto guy, you might be like, no, I can't have pizza because it got carbs. And it's like, oh, okay. Are you going to do it for the rest of your life? Yeah. Like, for the foreseeable future, do you see yourself not having a normal pizza?
Good luck not eating Roma, man.
So, it's like, it's creating that balance. And for anyone that's listening or watching, you have to understand that Austin's caloric needs are different than anyone else's.
Yeah, they're horrible.
It was interesting, just to put some perspective on it. I have a female client who's, I think she's around like 135 pounds. And I shared on like my Instagram story, like where my calories were and where they are now, or where they at the time. And she sent me this message, and she's like, how is this possible that my calories are only, so many hundred fewer than yours? And you are a 210 pound, deadlifting, nearly 400 for reps, just like all this stuff. She's like, I don't get it. And I was like, okay, but you have to understand is, if I'm eating 300 or 400 calories more than you per day, times that by 7, we're in the thousands that I'm ahead of you. Like, that's a lot. So understanding that, but it depends on your activity level, your stress level, your age, all those kinds of things go into how you use calories, and everyone's different. And that's where, like, there's no one single calorie prescription just because you're, 5'7" and 200 pounds. Okay, this is what you need. Not at all. I don't know how how are you sleeping? What are your stress levels? How are your bowel movements? Like, all of these things, like, you just don't realize, like, everyone's an individual.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to get there. And like, we've kind of been going through and talking about, how many calories does Austin need right now? And we're finding out that, we're able to have a lot of freedom because we haven't seen your weight move.
Yeah.
And that's part of living through it and understanding, like, oh, I can eat a lot more than I thought I could to maintain where I am. I know it can sound a little confusing, but
can you explain that, like the maintenance calories and
Sure.
that kind of the science behind that?
Yeah, so this is a topic we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So maintenance calories are the calories that you need to maintain your current weight right now. And this is based off of your activity level and your intake. So maintenance, how did I describe this? It's like from point B to point C. So it's a range, right? Between these, this is where your body's happy at the weight that it's at. If we go from B to A, so the lower end, we're in a caloric deficit. So you're consuming fewer calories than you expend, so you lose weight. If we go from, A, B, C to D, right? So we're just above maintenance. We're into a caloric surplus where you're consuming more than you're expending. You're going to gain weight. So everyone kind of has a range. Like we look at how often you work out, sleep, stress levels. As long as those are consistent with predictive formulas and, a little personal, information, like through your intake forms and asking you a few questions, we go, okay, here's a general, so many calories. Austin, I'm just pulling a number out of my butt, but, 2,800 calories. That's what Austin's predictive formulas came out to, along with a little bit of my information. Cool. So we have you hold that, right? We're tracking macronutrients, protein, carb, fat. And we go, okay, are you, we're taking pictures, taking measurements. Does body composition change? How's performance? How's libido? How's sleep? And if things aren't, if weight's not changing, we might, we could probably go up. We go up to 2,900 or 3,000 calories. Sounds crazy, right? That's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food.
But the thing is, depending on how your body chooses to use energy, depending on how intense your workouts are, how frequently you're working out, your weight might hold. And like we're finding out right now, we've been working up in calories. It's like Austin's goal is to improve body composition, become a little bit leaner, right? He doesn't want a six pack, but if we can get him,
Becca wants one.
Yeah, it's not about what Austin wants. Becca
texted him privately. I know he doesn't want to get shredded, but please.
You just want to look good naked.
Yeah.
That's a really common thing. But the thing is, we need to build a base, and part of that is building the habits to get there. So maintenance calories are a range. Your surplus calories, anything over maintenance, if you're putting on weight, we want to do that slowly. The slower you do that, the more lean tissue you maintain, and the less adipose tissue or fat tissue that you'll gain. So it's like a slow gain phase, or, you only go a couple hundred calories over. You have enough energy. Your body wants to build muscle. Recovery is optimized. Sleep is optimized. And where we see that get out of control is when people eat too much and they're underactive. They start to gain weight. They're not doing anything to build or maintain muscle. This is when people start to, have a belly and, they get fat.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative term. It's just you get larger. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. So can you explain, why we're doing what we're doing? And, I told you I want to be leaner, and we're gaining weight right now. So, and that was a challenge for me, especially because we just got back from the Bahamas. I'm like, man, I was kind of hoping to look a little better for the Bahamas, but I'm having to eat more. So explain why we're doing that in order to lose weight.
So we want to set you up for a successful, we'll call it a fat loss phase or recomposition. Part of it is we had just started working together, and you're like, hey, in less than a month, I'm going to be here and I want to look like this. I was like, cool, Austin. No. And you're it was over the phone, and you could tell you're kind of like, oh, yeah,
Fired.
yeah. Like this. Did I hire the right guy? It's understanding that you are where you are because of your current actions and habits. Yeah. And it's my job to poke holes in your current logic, right? You've basically admitted that you don't know what you're doing, but you want these results. You have to prove it to yourself. You have to live it. You have to build those skills. You have to prove it to me, right? And we live in the same town, but you're technically considered a remote client.
Yeah.
And without data, I can't help you. So this is why we track food. It's tracking macros, protein, carbs, and fats is the most accurate way to alter your body composition. And so we're doing it, and you're doing great. And you had a history with it too, which like I said, I've said it numerous times, accelerates where you are. Mm-hmm. And the big thing that we want to do is build a strong base. In order to set you up for a successful fat loss phase, we need to know that you have the skills. So how to track food, how to be accurate enough. Like we discussed, is a nutrition label has a margin of error of 20%.
Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't know that.
Fair amount.
Yeah.
The way I describe it, I think I described it to you as like pancake mix, right? It's a bunch of powder in a box, several ingredients. They can't guarantee that everything that came from that huge vat that comes in that little bag in the box is exactly what's there. All nutrition labels have a margin of error of 20%. So there's no being perfect, which is hard for a lot of type A's. Yeah. You just need to be good enough. So developing the skills, developing the mindset, and creating realistic expectations is what matters, because you need to prove to yourself that you can do these things, right? You take these actions, create a result, you create confidence. You know what works. Great. So we know we can hit these calories. The reason that we're going up in calories is because I want to see where the upper, like where you might start to gain weight, right? You've been hovering, it's fun using numbers, but so it's like you've been hovering around 200 pounds, give or take. Normal couple pound fluctuation is normal. And all I'm looking for is that we see that little bump in weight. So we're like, okay, we just left maintenance. He's ready to go. He's got enough calories that his body is running optimally. His body's in a position to want or to be okay losing fat. I know you're in a healthy place then. If you came to me and you were only eating 1,800 calories, 2,000 calories, and you wanted to go into a deficit right away to lose fat, you can, but we don't have a whole lot to take away from. So great, so we're going to do a 500 calorie drop. What does that leave you at? We can do maybe one more drop. You're going to be disappointed with your results. It's not great.
And you're eating like a mouse.
Right, yeah. Right. And that is not the way we want to be. We want you eating as much as possible while losing weight. I've had clients that have come to me and said, hey, I worked with a coach and they just took me from what I was eating and said, hey, eat, 1,400 calories. Like, you're going to lose weight. Is that healthy? Are you learning good habits? Like, no. Like I said, it's like we eat every day, but a lot of people don't know a thing about food. That's not okay. So when I work with people, like, yeah, I'm kind of pushing that on you, but if you want results that last, you need to understand it. So I'm very straightforward with people on that. And like, I do not budge. I have fired clients before because they're like, well, I can get results, but I'm like, great, do it. Yeah. How much money do I owe you? Yeah. I will not stand for that. So to set you up for success, skills, expectations, and then truly putting your body in a position that it's willing to lose fat. It's got more energy than it needs. It's okay. And then we strategically work calories down. We make sure activity is good. We ask a lot of the same questions to make sure that every week we are progressing appropriately. So the right loss of fat over time, loss of weight. And then the biggest piece that's missing with diets is understanding, you're going to have to do a little bit more when you're in that deficit. It's a short-term thing. And then how to come out of the diet. This is where most people fail. So my program has like a 3-step method. It's the health phase, where it's education heavy, where you're kind of still in that. And then the second phase would be the goal phase. Is it performance? Is it weight gain? Is it muscle gain? Is it fat loss? Where for you, right, it's fat loss, right? Recomposition a little bit. Again, look good naked for Becca. And
not for the podcast.
Not for the podcast. Yeah. Waist up. But it's like how to get out of that, because it's understanding that you cannot continually eat less and less and expect to get good results. Our body doesn't like that. So have enough muscle, build muscle, have good habits, have the skills to lose the weight. Great, we lost the weight. Okay, now the lifestyle integration, the coming back. Now this is what, when I was working at this group fitness gym, it was fat loss challenges left and right. They would hand you meal plans. They say work out 3 times a week. Like anyone that does that, follows that to a T, like they're handing it to you. You're going to lose weight. They were given a meal plan. They don't understand food. They were just told to eat this. Okay? Yeah. They lost the weight. Great. They got their money back. Cool. You got a money grab. Fantastic. Proud of you. But then, I know I'm mixing stories here, but the reason why I had a hard time with that was because I was the one dealing with the people that had lost the weight or didn't lose the weight and were wondering why. I was dealing with the people that lost the weight and then continued to eat those basement level calories expecting the results would stick. And they started gaining weight. And, those are the people I had to deal with, and they did not understand. They were never taught how to take their diet and then bring it back into real life, reintegrate those foods, the quantities, things like that. That's why I never exclude foods, because I'm not going to demonize something, because you're going to have it again, and I want you to, but its understanding is, quality, quantity, frequency. So I'm going to take you to the top of the mountain. The view is going to be great. I taught you how to climb up there, right? The view is great. The view is great in the mirror. And then I'm going to teach you how to climb back down. I'm not just going to be your Sherpa on the way up, say, all right, take your picture, and then see ya. Yeah. I'm not going to leave you up there. It's that lifestyle integration, climbing back down the mountain and bringing food back up, talking about how you are expected to gain a little bit of weight, right? We up carbs, you're going to see weight gain. Each gram of carbohydrate carries 3 molecules of water. There's your water weight. And guess what? It's stored in your muscle. It doesn't just go to fat. It doesn't want to go to fat. The water's heavy, so it's understanding that. So we want to set you up for success, and that's developing the skills, the understanding, the knowledge, all of those things. So we're at the tail end of that first phase for you, and you're going to be better off going through all of it. And these are things that I've done myself too, very successfully,
Yep.
So, I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm like, I've lived these things. I know what a good diet, going in and out of a diet feels like, and I know what a bad one feels like. And I don't want anyone to feel like that. So usually it's not as extreme as people think, but if you're really attentive to what you're doing, you can create some fantastic results in a fairly short period of time, and short period being 6 to 12 months, because bodies don't change. People want this overnight. Anytime you do that, it's not going to last.
Yeah. Man, when we started and you're like, well, just keep doing what you're doing, but track it. Like, okay. Then another week passed. And just track proteins. 2 weeks, we still haven't done anything yet. The third week, okay, now let's track fats. Okay, we're almost a month into this. Let's get going. But it's slow and it's methodical, and there's a system to what you're doing, and I'm trusting in that system. Let's just talk about tracking a little bit. And tracking is the foundational part of this, right? You can't succeed at what you don't track. You can't grow at what you don't track. And I think it's almost identical to having a personal budget. If you don't track your personal finances and you just spend money willy-nilly, well, you have no idea if you're making money or losing money, or if you're able to invest or save. It's no different than what goes into your body. And into your body, your daily caloric number is your money, right? That's your top line. That's what you have to work with. And what you eat is your expenses. And it's literally no different. It's the same exact thing. And if somebody wants to get control of their finances, well, what's step one is to develop a budget and identify where your money is going. No different with food. So for the average person listening who can't hire you, won't hire you, how can they find out what that range is for them, what their macros should be? What are some resources that they can go to find that out?
So there's predictive equations such as like the Mifflin-St. Jeor. There's a couple other ones too, like Harris-Benedict. These are things you can just Google. Sure. Or you can Google, macro calculator, and you're going to get a bunch of them, and they're going to be close enough. But it's also understanding that it's going to give you a range. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. You've got your calories. Some of those might even spit out, protein, carbs, fat. It's all going to be different. The way that I coach someone is going to differ person to person. Do I work under the same principles or similar principles? For the most part. So, where I'm going to put protein is going to be, again, I'm going to just throw some numbers. It's not necessarily going to make sense. But, 0.7 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Seems like a lot. For you, you were already, exceeding expectations around that one, you're eating almost 200 grams of protein per day, pretty dang close to body weight. I'm a happy guy. It's plenty. To get carbohydrate goals for someone, it's dependent on activity level. To get fat, it's dependent on preference and activity level. Are they a meat eater? That plays a big role. How much processed food are you having? Because there's oftentimes it's carb and fat heavy and low in protein. So to get started, you can look up those predictive equations. It's going to give you something. It's better than nothing. But that's where it's like having someone to bounce ideas off of, having a coach to bounce ideas off of goes a long way. And that's something too, is like, if someone has questions, I'm more than willing to give a little bit of input if they ever wanted to reach out. But it's understanding that just because a computer spit out calories doesn't mean that's it for you. It's like I could do the same thing. And quite honestly, I do something similar, but I'm also taking into account like your intake form. I'm looking at your history. I'm looking at your personality traits. You're more of a type A kind of guy. I know you're going to want to stick to numbers. You're going to be a little bit more strict. So to get those calories, it can be helpful, but you also have to understand how much you're eating right now currently to know what direction to go.
Yeah.
What's the healthy direction? How long have you been eating like this?
Yep.
Something that's really common is that, people will be under eating for a long time and then they think they need to continue under eating to get results, and they end up gaining weight because they're underfed, overstressed, active, and their body's not happy.
Yeah.
So again, it's like lack of education. They see those calorie numbers. Again, that client who's about 135 pounds, we got her up to damn near 3,000 calories and she's not gaining weight. Everyone's different. Yeah. So a starting point, sure, calories are great, but I would start with quality of food, making sure that meals are balanced. So protein, carb, fat, healthy fat source, and vegetables at every meal. It sounds kind of like that, like, well, duh, but are you doing it? Like, you need to, like you said, is like, check yourself. Have a budget, write things out. So,
yeah. So 2 questions. I'll ask the first one first. In your opinion, how overrated is the scale when you're talking about this weight loss thing, right? Because a lot of people do fad diets or do these quick fixes, but if my whole goal is, let's say my goal is, I want to be shredded. Just watching the scale isn't going to prove that I'm actually getting more shredded, because if I'm starving myself, 70% of that could be actual muscle loss, and the scale says, holy cow, you dropped 5 pounds. But if I'm losing all muscle and barely any fat, right, I'm not really, like, my recomposition of my body is not what I'm actually wanting. So in your opinion, how overrated is the scale?
The scale's a tool, right? Just like a lot of measurements, photos, they're objective tools. Your weight's going to fluctuate anywhere from, I've seen 3 to 8 pounds in a day, right? Depends on bowel movements, depends on how much food, how much water. Like you said, is like, there's a difference between losing fat and losing weight. Fat would be fat, right? Mm-hmm. Weight could be muscle, fat, skin. So it's understanding what you're doing and being strategic. So if we want to lose fat, we want to make sure that we are exercising appropriately to tell our body to keep muscle, hold on to it. It's the whole, if you don't use it, you lose it. So we want to send that stimulus. When your calories are below maintenance, muscle is expensive. To maintain it, we want to make sure protein is high. We want to make sure, muscle protein synthesis is just kind of like a trigger. So having, and studies show this too, is like, but having like up to at minimum 20 grams of protein every 3 to 5 hours triggers muscle protein synthesis. It's that switch that says, hey, we have enough protein to build/maintain muscle. So that's why it's important to have regular meals. Now you know why people are like, oh, you have to have 6 meals a day. That's what that stems from, but it's a little bro science.
So intermittent fasting.
We can get to that.
At the very end, we're going to go through a bunch of fad things.
Yeah. I love it.
We'll pocket them for now.
Yeah.
I might have the same response every time. No, so scale is a tool, but like you said, is like if you are drastically under eating and not supporting muscle mass, you're going to lose weight, and then you're going to be really disappointed with the body that you have left because there's not much, showing through. So again, going back to kind of like the phase that Austin is in, it's like, I need you to lift heavy on what you can because we want to build as much muscle while we have all these calories. the more muscle you have, the easier it is to lose fat. Muscle is expensive. So it's the energy demand is high to build and maintain it. After a strength training session, your body is, like, calorie expenditure is up for the next 24 to 72 hours compared to like cardio. Like, sure, cardio, you burn more calories while you're running. Okay. But you're doing that for how many hours? Great. And then, I'm not against running. I do run. But when you lift, you're sending a different stimulus. And to repair that muscle and build new muscle back takes a lot of energy. And that energy comes from your body and the food that you eat. And in a sense, you become calorically inefficient, which is a good thing, which means that, if you have more muscle mass, you have more storage units for things like carbohydrates. That's where it wants to go. So you ingest carbohydrates, they become glucose. Your muscles are literal storage units along with your liver. But the more muscle you have, like, the easier you can get away with, eating a little bit more edgy, having that, that whole pizza, within reason. But coming back, the scale is a tool. It doesn't tell us the full story. I was like, Austin could tell him, like, okay, I'm like, how's your poop? How's your sex drive? How's your recovery? Are you sore?
Don't answer any of those.
Yeah, not They're all great. He's been doing well. He's a healthy guy.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Moving on. So it's a tool. There's a lot more that goes into it. I am, in a lot of cases, like, yes, it plays a role when we're looking at weight loss. We want to make sure there's an appropriate rate of loss. If it's too fast, yes, the worry is that calories were dropped too far too quickly and you're losing muscle mass, which is not ideal. So, slower rate of loss is a great tool, but
right,
there's a lot more.
Yeah, because I think people just ask the wrong questions. Everybody's, I want to lose weight. That's not really what, they're not saying they want to just lose weight. They're saying they want to lose fat. But in the same sense, then my other question would be, people that want to get healthier, yes, we want to probably like trim down a bit, but where's finding the balance of, like, people can look really good and be cardiovascularly, there it is, unhealthy, right? I can be, like, you can be super fit, but, like, you can have high blood pressure, you do all the workouts, but your diet's not good in terms of, I don't know, probably macros and fats or whatever. Like, you can get super trimmed if you're using enhancers too with that, be absolutely jacked, but your heart's terrible. Like, your actual fitness and health of living a long life is down. So, like, where's finding that balance in that? Like, because sometimes our skin coat isn't a great example of how healthy we really are.
True. I think it's like education goes a long way. If you don't know something, and this is, it's like find a coach, a good one, and it's, it's like, I'm right here. But no, I don't mean it like that. But it's like to find someone that you can trust that can educate you goes a long way. But like you said, like, someone can look, fit, muscular, healthy, and they could be the runner that's a little bit thinner and can run for miles, but they're, like you said, blood pressure, cholesterol, testosterone's low, all these different things, versus the lifter who's, they got big biceps and, their legs are big glutes, whatever, but their blood pressure is through the roof. Part of that comes down to understanding food in general, having good balance, because, like, yeah, you could build a great physique on pizza, meat, and enough of those things in the right balance, you could do that. But it's understanding, how does fiber play a role? How does sleep play a role? How does stress management play a role? How do you talk to yourself? Are your habits healthy? So it's like, I wish there was like this, like, yep, this is it, but it's so complex. And again, everyone's different, but quality, quantity, and frequency of food, quality, quantity, and frequency of exercise, right? You want to train your heart, your cardiorespiratory system. You want to train your muscles. Those are two different systems. So, does walking train your cardiorespiratory? Not really. It's not intentional cardiovascular. You have to be over a certain heart rate for the person to actually get into that range. So, do things that you love that keep you active. Have foods that you enjoy, but you have to understand, like, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Right? There's no bad foods, but if you are eating more processed than you are real whole foods, that's when you start to get an imbalance. So,
well, because I asked that because I'm sure we all know there always seemed to be that one person that's like, dude, they could live on McDonald's and Taco Bell and chips and they won't gain a pound. See, like seemingly, like they don't work out hard. You can work out way harder. So in that same vein, how much of it is genetics? Like food versus genetics. Like, is that because not everybody's the same body type, and I mean maybe they'll take more work to get there, but there are people who are just seemingly like just rail skinny
and can eat anything.
I eat
anything she wants.
As much pizza as I want. 15 beers a day, and I'm rail thin. And then you have people who work really hard, and they're just a little bit, as like the world calls it, like bigger boned.
Yeah.
So how much is genetics play a role?
I think it does play a role. It's kind of hard for me to just make a judgment, not having all the information. But there's it's got like the Thrifty gene theory. Really interesting. Is like when someone increases calories, their body actually increases their energetic expenditure, so they actually move more. So when we reduce calories, like you will literally blink less. You'll be less apt to get up. You don't want to walk. Your body wants to conserve. But then there's some people where, and it always tends to be the person that eats junk food all the time. I had a boss like this, Tom, like if you're ever watching this, you're a great guy. But it was just like funny to watch because, he was always eating fast food and just this really thin dude, has a 6-pack, but like so does a 6-year-old. But he was nonstop moving. So like next time you think about this, like pay attention to that person that's like that. Are they always twitching their foot? They have something, like they're always moving. Like those calories add up, but you might find that they're just like, they're busybodies, and that could potentially lead into it. But, genetics, how you grew up plays a role. Like what are normal things? Are you active? For that skinny person or thinner person that eats everything, but their metabolism could be really high too, just meaning that, which is usually from movement, but, everyone handles calories differently. And then the other thing too is that, sure, it seems like they're eating all the time, but that food quality could be really low and they're not actually eating as many calories as you think.
Yeah.
So that could play a role too.
Yeah. I think the big thing with all of it is it's so individualized, and it's a personal journey for people depending on what their goals are and what they're looking to get out of it. So I would just encourage anybody to, really look at yourself personally and talk with somebody who knows what they're talking about, and don't just look at a fad diet and follow it and track. Just start to track. And I think two things that have been encouraging to me from you is like, okay, I've done a 6-month deal, whatever, lost weight. Like, I don't want to do that again and just go through 6 months, lose weight, and then put it back on. So 2 things that have been encouraging is, one, you're like, dude, you don't have to track for the rest of your life. Like, the goal is to take the next 6 months and educate yourself on what is in these foods. And then maybe you track 2 days a week or 3 days a week or 1 day a week. And it doesn't have to be an everyday thing all the time. So that's, to me, it's like, I don't want to have to do this for the rest of my life.
Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm having rice and beans. I got to weigh it all out.
Yes. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to do this, but it's encouraging to know that I don't have to do this. And the second thing that's encouraging is, you're like, dude, once you lose this weight, you have a greater margin of error. So my question to you before was, do I have to now reduce what I eat and now eat like a mouse all the time for the rest of my life? You're like, no, you can actually, your body can support more fluctuations of calories when you are leaner and living a healthier lifestyle, that you don't always have to eat like a mouse and you won't gain the weight back. So for me, those 2 things have been really encouraging. I think people can get overwhelmed looking at this from the start of, I have to track, I have to do this formula to find out what my calories are, and then I have to track everything, and then I have to cut it, or I have to go up first, and then I have to cut it, and how much, it can get very overwhelming for people. So I would just encourage people to just take it step by step, start really slow. If you don't hire a coach, I like paying for a coach, because if I pay for something, I'm incentivized to want to do it. Like if Keegan's my accountability partner,
good luck.
I'm going to struggle, right? Because Keegan's not really incentivized for me to get healthy. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Keegan doesn't care. I don't. But if I'm paying somebody a good amount of money to do it, I'm going to do it. So, but if you can't do that and you can't afford that, find somebody that you can trust to be an accountability partner to you in your journey. So,
yeah. And like you said, like everyone's different, but having this, the basic awareness is going to go a long way. So, and it's going to look different for everyone.
yeah.
You don't have to track for forever, but if you want to make changes, you have to understand that what you've done for the last 5 to 10 years got you to where you are. It might feel right to you, but for the goals that you now want, you have to realize that you're probably going to have to take different actions. That's going to be uncomfy. So lean into it, and you're going to have to do differently if you want a different result. And that's hard for a lot of people. And that's part of the reason why I like I've started, in the last year, I said, I was start working with more high performing men specifically, because they know what failure is. They also know that if they go head on into something, they're going to learn really fast. Mm-hmm. And if we do this and you learn the right thing, you're going to go, holy crap, this is the magic. Got it. We got Spencer in common, Nicolati, and Dana. Been working with them for 2 years. The changes are not necessarily always physical, but one of the things that stuck with me that he said, he's like, I figured, any professional player, anyone that's, more successful than me, and however he's gauging that, he's like, they have a coach or they have a team.
Yeah.
And it's accountability. It's pushing yourself to be more uncomfortable. It's, how do I level up? I want to do this. I need to be held accountable. I need to show up for myself. If I show up for myself, I can show up better for my family. I can show up better for my business. I can show up better. I can be a better example when I walk in a room, right? When someone walks in the room and they have a presence of they're fit, they're healthy. People talk about the hard things that they do. I'm going to respect that person a lot more out the door. Humans, we're very judgmental, right? Part of that's a safety thing, right? We check everyone out. Who do we have to worry about? Who do we like? But when you walk in a room and you're confident because you're healthy, you're confident because your business is thriving, you're gonna be a better human.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's what I always tell myself. I like what you said about the 5 years thing. We want the quick fix, but I always tell myself, I'm like, look, it took me a year of doing nothing, being lazy and eating whatever I want to put all this on. Yeah, I'm not going to drop it in 2 weeks. It's going to be months and months of hard work. Why? Because I put myself in this position. It took me a year to put all this on.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take me some time to get it back off. So, and then my whole motivation is when I'm working out. When I don't feel like it, now I'll make it PG-13. But while I'm lifting, this is just me. You guys can feel free to try it out. I go, you want to be a piece of crap your whole life? I wanted to share that, but it's a true story. I work out with Aaron Moonmaker, and he hears it. I'm like, okay, I pump myself out. I punch bench press. I'll lean back and I go, all right, you want to be a fat piece of crap your whole life? There you go. That's Keegan's free tip on how to jack yourself
That's
up.
powerful. That's good stuff.
Well, this was really good. I mean, nothing here is mind-blowing. There's no sexy fad diet that you shared, or quick fix, or a pill you can take. It takes hard work. It's not fun at the beginning. It's uncomfortable. It's a tough sales pitch for you, but
Right.
you know what I mean?
Runs longer than you think. Sorry, but
for sure.
But the amount of success.
When you got all the gurus you're competing with.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can make you lose fat in 4 days.
Great. And how many of those people also jump from guru to guru?
Yeah.
Ayahuasca trip.
Yeah, right. And okay, so this is funny. This is but what I get to brag about is that my client retention is really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
My referral rate is really good because we get people solid results that are worth talking about. Not just the hey, I lost weight on keto, pretty sick.
Yeah.
Which is good for business.
6 months later,
Sustainability. I don't have to keep going and look for
right.
Yeah.
4 days. I need 1,000 total clients. It's no, I don't.
No, high. I want high quality people.
Yep.
Right. And there's also the whole thing of you help solve more wealthy people's problems. There's more money there.
Yeah.
And there's truth to that, but it's the people that understand it's going to take a little bit of risk, but they're also willing to take immediate action. They're also willing to admit they don't have the answers to something because they're not where they are. Yep. So if they can connect with someone, trust them, take action,
Yeah.
Right on.
For sure.
All right, let's end real quick with a really fast segment. It's
Hit
gonna
me.
be 2 minutes. We'll go back and forth. It's going to be 2 minutes with Jack, and we're going to throw out fad diets and cool stuff, and then you hit us.
Just break the myth, or
Yeah, break the myth.
Mythbusters?
Myth
2-minute Mythbusters.
Yep, there you go.
Intermittent fasting.
For what are we looking for? To try to lose weight, or what's the goal here? What am I?
It's overall health and
Okay.
weight loss.
I think it's totally fine. Something that we discussed. The biggest thing is like it's goal dependent. If you're fasting and you're still overeating, you're gonna maintain or gain weight. If you're fasting and under eating and you're at a caloric deficit, you're gonna lose weight. As far as studies go, it doesn't really support being. If you want to build more muscle and maintain, fasting's probably not it for you. Sorry.
This one's close to home. Vegan.
I don't.
Got
Again. No, I support people and their choices and their beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's understanding that you're going to be playing a much more finite game of making sure you're getting enough protein, because vegan and vegetarianism, not all vegetables have complete protein. We have to understand that. Anything that comes from an animal or is an animal has a complete protein source. Something that's incomplete protein will not directly help with muscle growth. Also with like B vitamin deficiencies, things like that. So proper supplementation and then eating enough. It's not that you can't do it. I think you can. I support you, but understand that usually protein and some deficiencies come with that. So if you're like really on point, you can do it.
Especially if you're living on big chain grocery store vegetables, but that's a story for another day.
Keto.
Keto. I don't think it's sustainable. Our brain primarily runs on glucose. For your body to turn fat into glucose to be used for energy is of high demand, and oftentimes it's not sustainable. Just energetically, it's not great for performance. You will not find a single professional athlete that uses keto. It's a bold statement, but a lot of them won't. They won't, because it's just not advantageous to performance.
So on TikTok, guy says you should drink your own urine. Yes or no?
Oh my God, I saw that. He was so serious too. Your body's getting rid of that for a reason. Let's just,
Good, got it.
desert scenario, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's all.
Tracking macros.
I think it's the most accurate way that you can get around food and understand it. And like you said before, it's not something you have to do for forever, but if you can learn the ins and outs of it, you're going to have a better understanding. If you want better results, understanding food is going to be pivotal to whatever you're trying to do. So that's how I like to coach, if you're open to that.
Yeah, that was going to be my last one. Calling you as a coach.
Yeah.
The best way.
I'm here. So you can find me on Facebook, Jack Sullivan, or Instagram, Modern Strength, or you can search Jack Sullivan. I'll pop up. But yeah, those are the best two places to find me. I got a website that's currently under construction, but hopefully in the next month or 3, that'll be
When
ready
you
to
how
rock.
construction goes. Slow.
Just kidding.
Well, Jack has my personal referral too, so would highly recommend him. It's been great for me so far, and looking forward to going into a deficit.
Yeah, that's
losing some fat.
it's the fun part.
So thanks for being here, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you found value in today's episode and learned at least one thing that you can take back and implement into your lives and businesses. As always, we appreciate your support and hope you can all find a way to pay it forward this week.